everyone, I'm back with another video, and I know it's been a minute. I actually take the medical boards in 2 weeks from now, and I really needed a little bit of a brain break, so I went on vacation back home for a little bit. But anyway, today's video is going to be a lot shorter because unlike the last video where we talked about phenotypic male development, where it had a lot of hormone components, this one is going to be a lot shorter and a lot less complex, but I hope all the same that it is just as helpful for you all. And the next video we're going to combine all of these together. So if you have not watched the previous video, I suggest you go do that. Also, if you have not watched the genetics videos or the indifferent stage videos, then I suggest you also watch those so that you are familiar with the terminology that I'm going to be using in this video. So today we are going to be talking about female phenotypic development. And so just like the last one with the male development, we start off with our indifferent gonad. And we also start off once again with our paramesonephric duct. And our mesonephric duct, which I'm going to write here just so we can remember that these exist. So, last time we covered that the indifferent gonad, if we're going to have phenotypic male development, we are going to have something called TDF, or testis determining factor, that's going to act on the indifferent gonad to produce a testis. Well, in this one, we are actually, of course, going to be forming an ovary, but we don't have an SRY gene in this case, and so we are not going to produce TDF. So what happens, how do we get from the indifferent gonad to the ovary is primarily through the absence of TDF. So if you do not have TDF and you cannot make a testis, you are going to go into this pathway to produce an ovary. But a lot of textbooks will leave it off as the absence of TDF is what stimulates ovarian development. However, recently textbooks have been shifting to also adding the presence of a factor called WNT4, which WNT classes of factors are common throughout a lot of embryologic development. Namely, WNT7 is one that we see a lot in limb development, but WNT4 is pretty specific to gonadogenesis, and there is some debate about what role does WNT4 play in male development versus female development. But as far as what the textbooks are teaching, they are saying that the presence of WNT4 is necessary for the formation of an ovary. So I'm including it here in that we get from the indifferent gonad to the ovary through the absence of TDF and also the presence of WNT4. And so once we have our ovary, the major cell type is going to be, we're going to have ovarian follicles, and we're going to produce estradiol, also known as estrogen. This is one of the potent forms of estrogen, and this estrogen is going to allow us to produce external genitalia. And this is going to include the clitoris, the labia, and the distal part. So when I say distal, I mean closer to the outside. So the bottom part of the vagina. So the internal part of the vagina is actually going to come through the internal genitalia, which is going to stem from our paramesonephric duct. And so I'm going to draw our arrow here, and this is kind of similar to our ovarian development in that in the male side, when we had our production of Sertoli cells and MIF was going to inhibit the paramesonephric duct and cause it to degenerate. But in this side, we want the paramesonephric duct, and so what is going to end up stimulating this is the absence of MIF. And so you can think about it in this way. So if MIF is Mullerian inhibiting factor, and if it's meant to inhibit the mesonephric duct, if you inhibit the inhibitor, then you get stimulation. And so we have, like here we have no MIF, so no inhibition, so we have stimulation of the paramesonephric duct, and the paramesonephric duct is going to become our internal genitalia, and that is going to become the fallopian tubes or the uterine tubes, whichever term you prefer. The uterus and the proximal, so the upper part I cannot handwrite today. I was going to try to do a lot better with my handwriting, but that apparently is not the case of what is going on. Proximal vagina. So we have our external genitalia over here, we have our internal genitalia over here, but then we still have this mesonephric duct over here. And so what's going to happen to the mesonephric duct? Well, I'm going to draw a line down here, and just like in the last video, I'm going to draw this little non-arrow, because this is what would form the internal genitalia of the male phenotype. But in order to form the, or in order to stimulate the maintenance of the mesonephric duct, as we saw in the last video, it requires, let me make the blunt end there so it's a bit more clear. But in the last video, we said that testosterone, my goodness, I am a hot mess. So that testosterone is what is going to stimulate this mesonephric duct to stay there and to form the male internal genitalia. But in our case, we do not have testosterone. So in the absence of testosterone, we're going to tell this mesonephric duct to degenerate, and we're going to inhibit this development. So now we do not have the potential to form male internal genitalia. So this was a really quick pathway once again, so we're just going to go all the way through it. So starting off, we have our indifferent gonad, and in order to form an ovary, we're going to have absent TDF, so no TDF present, but we are going to have the presence of WNT4. We're going to produce an ovary and ovarian follicles. We're going to produce estradiol, and estradiol is going to act on our indifferent external genitalia, so that genital tubercle and such. They're going to develop into the clitoris, the labia, and the distal vagina. And then in the absence of MIF, we are going to stimulate the paramesonephric duct to become the internal genitalia, including the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the proximal vagina. And then in the absence of testosterone, we are going to tell our mesonephric duct to degenerate, so we no longer have potential for male internal genitalia. So this was a pretty quick video. Next video, I'm going to combine this pathway with the phenotypic male pathway, and we're going to get into some fun about what happens when one of these has a variance in it. What happens, say, if TDF is not present but testosterone is? Or this kind of differences in sexual development. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments below. Or if you have any beef with anything that I've said, if you also want to weigh in on this debate of the WNT4, let me know in the comments, and I will catch you all in the next one.